Have you ever struggled to think of content ideas? Who hasn't? I'm going to show you how I solve this so you can never run out of content ideas again. So there's two types of content I found that someone can make. There's manufactured content, which is the content that you'll sit at your desk and you brainstorm and you create out of thin air. It's based on what you think your ICP or your ideal customer persona may want to know. Documented content is my personal favorite. It's just you doing stuff and then sharing that stuff with the world. This is where I live now, and I'd love to share with you my process and how that looks. So every time I create something, an SOP, framework, process, an improvement, or engage in an action, or conduct an experiment and get results, I just share that. That becomes documented content. And documented content is super easy because you just take the blinders off and realize that your life is super unique and you're learning something every single day and doing dope shit every day, and people want to see that. So I'd recommend you do the same if this isn't something that you're doing today. So here are some sources that I tap into to gather both manufactured and documented content. So feel free to steal this if this is helpful for you, and leave a like if it's helpful. So the first place is Reddit, right? I'm a big Redditor. I love Reddit. I'll go to Reddit and I'll find specific subreddits where my ICP, which is ideal customer profile, lives, and study what kind of posts they create. I can learn what they care about, what they talk about, what they conversate about, and what their main frustrations are. I can then create content that's uniquely positioned to help answer their questions. So, two things. If you're a founder that's just starting out, this is great because after learning how they speak, you can use their same language in your content. It's going to create this familiarity and trust because you are one of them. So, for example, if you're selling to SaaS founders, you probably wouldn't call them owners. They're founders, right? That's how they identify. So, in your content, you would say, "Hey, founders, this is for you." If you say, "Hey, owners," it's going to come off a little incongruent. Now, if you're talking to gyms, right, like it's going to be more owners, like gym owners. You don't call them founders per se. So that little nuance in the language, it's subtle, but I think you can pick that up by going to the subreddits. Again, this is if you're starting out, but that does make a world of a difference. But if you're an established founder, you've probably already dialed in your messaging and are well aware of your ICP's language. This method will help you meet your ICP where they live and can help minimize the time it takes for them to recognize you as an authority and buy from you. So if you're an inexperienced, unestablished founder, this is for you to learn your ICP's language and dial in your messaging. If you're an established founder, this is simply to take your content and literally serve it to your ICP where they live on a silver platter. Don't make them come for you. Just find out where they are and just post the content there, right? So that's a little bonus tip for the established founders. But established founders, you can still go to Reddit and find out what people are talking about. This will just generate so many content ideas for you because it's basically free user interviews of what the customer that you're selling to is thinking about. So this is manufactured content because you're creating content for a specific purpose, right? You are looking at what people are saying and then making content around that. So every time I scroll through Reddit, I find multiple pieces of content I can make or several ideas that I can add to my idea bank and chew on later. If you don't know what an idea bank is, I'm gonna have a video at the end of this talking about that. So feel free to check that out. But after you finish this video, the second source I use to find content ideas is Twitter. Right, I follow a lot of my target audience on Twitter, and I make a list of all the people in my ICP, and I keep an eye on what they're tweeting, what they're commenting, what are they engaging with, what are they liking, what time of day are they posting, things like that. And here's an extra hack for you. I'll type keywords for my ICP, like my ICP are founders. They identify as founders. So I'll type founders into Twitter search, and anyone that has it in their title, anyone that has it in their bio, anyone that tweets about founder stuff, it'll pop up. And I'll add them to a list. So you can do the same with whatever your audience identifies as, like creator, coach, consultant, owner, whatever. Put them in a list, and you can actually see everyone in that list, what they comment, post, whatever, right? Retweet, all in one thing. So you can engage them on a consistent basis because Twitter is a relationship game. So by analyzing their activity in that list, I can see what they actually care about, similar to Reddit, and it helps me create content that's specifically tailored to them. So Twitter is super powerful for this, and I would definitely recommend giving it a try. Okay, so now we move on to documented content, which is where I live and which is the type of content I enjoy making. So the first place is my own thoughts and actions, right? Sounds pretty basic, but let me give you some context. As I engage in experiments and trench learning, there's a lot of information I come across, and I like to sit down from time to time and just synthesize all this into actionable frameworks or steps. So for example, I edit my own content, right? I found several minor improvements that actually end up saving me hours each week. Now, these minor improvements came from quick Google searches after I had a question or after I realized, hey, I was doing the same thing over and over and over again. I wanted other automations. Can I speed this up? Do I even need to do this, etc.? So those Google searches, those are things that I've learned because of like that's trench knowledge. That's things that I've gone out actively done to improve my process, and now I can share that with other people because there are other people that are making their own content, other founders that are making their own content, and they're editing their own content. So I can help them by showing them a trick that I learned, and it becomes this piece of content that makes me look like an authority because I'm someone that's actively in the trenches testing this out. So I learned something through action that I can share with others, right? And that's basically documented content. But we don't really think that way, right? We don't do stuff and we think, oh, this I'm gonna put this on YouTube. We just kind of do it. We're like, oh, this is cool. Okay, cool. I saved this much time. But I want you to just take that blinder off if you can, because I promise you, it's just gonna give you so many more content ideas because it's done that for me. I think it could be helpful for you. But I started shifting to that sort of documenting, and I mean, the amount of content ideas I generate per week has just exploded. I mean, now I probably get anywhere from like 3 to 4 pieces of content like every few days. It probably generates me like 10 ideas a week. And that's no joke. That really does compound over time. So I'd recommend looking back on your week and trying to think and reflect on what you've personally learned. This doesn't have to be related to your craft, but it can be something you learned like mentality wise or business wise or personal, right? Or family wise. Like just things that are kind of adjacent to what you're trying to do. So it's not too far from the main thing, but it at least helps people learn from what you're actually doing. The second thing, right, is my client's questions. So when I work with my client, they tend to have a lot of questions, and I found a way to turn those basically into this gold mine of content ideas. So every question that he has, I write it down. And I believe if one person has that question, I'm sure a lot of people do. So my client has asked questions previously before, like, hey, is a shorts only strategy better than combining long form and shorts? What's a good offer to attach to the content? How do we measure success? How do we know it's working? Right? So the answers to their questions becomes the content that I can share via video. So this is one of my favorite methods for generating content ideas because every time I talk to this particular client, and we talk every day, I walk with like 1 or 2 solid ideas. And this compounds over time to being like 10, 15 ideas per week. So that's just from simple conversations because I just turn that filter off and I'm listening to the questions that they ask. So if you're working with clients regularly, like an agency founder, I recommend this approach. It's an effortless way to create content, and it's something you're already doing. So I would recommend trying that out. The third way of documented content are sales calls. When you're on sales calls, you get a front row seat to the questions that prospects have about your product or service. And these questions are a gold mine for content ideas. So I would just recommend writing down every question you get on a sales call, or just record your calls and then see what questions pop up constantly. So obviously you should be recording your calls anyway, but I would prioritize those questions that pop up constantly first and make video content answering those questions. Now, there are other benefits to this, right? So there's more efficient sales calls, more trust before they join the call. Primary benefit is that you get a lot of content ideas. But let's talk about what I mean by the other benefits. Is like if you get a constant question on your calls, like so let's talk about like I'll give you an example from my end. Like some common questions that I've gotten on sales calls are, hey, what's the difference between founder-led marketing and company-led marketing? How do you drive traffic down a funnel so people actually visit a landing page? How much time will this take me per week? What can I expect in terms of ROI? So I'll take those questions and I'll make content ideas around them. And what this does is one, again, going back to how the clients think is if somebody has this question, I'm sure a lot of people do. And if I have this content out there, a prospect can watch this content first before they come and talk to me. And this will essentially prime them into having more trust on me. And it'll make the sales calls more efficient. So we can talk actually about implementation or pricing more than is this going to work. So that's what I would recommend. And that's where this method becomes really powerful. But if you're a founder that's not directly on sales calls anymore, that's no problem. I would just ask your sales teams to keep track of the questions that they hear most often and review that list. And now you've got a ready-made list of content ideas. So for me personally, I'm at capacity. I'm not working with any new clients at the moment. So I'm not pulling content ideas from sales calls anymore. But those ideas that I gave you were from the sales calls I used to get. But this would give me consistently like 1 or 2 ideas per week. So if you're in sales or running a business, you can start using your sales calls to fuel your content. I think it's an easy, low-hanging fruit way to create content that directly resonates. All right, so the fourth way of documenting content is my own content. I like to revisit my own content, right? So my own tweets, LinkedIn posts, comments that have sparked engagement to find what's already resonated with people. There's often a lot of untapped potential just waiting to be repurposed. But it doesn't just stop at social media. I also look at texts and conversations that I've had. And if I've texted about a topic or talked about it, that's content too, right? It just needs to be refined and tailored for video. So here's a bonus tip. If you've already written content like an ebook or a blog, I would start there. I mean, you've essentially got a script already ready to go. All you need to do is turn it into a video. And most companies and founders these days do have written content. So I would definitely just check there. I mean, it's one of the lowest hanging fruits for repurposing content. And that gives you some content ideas to start off with. The second bonus tip is if you've ever spoken at a conference or at a big event, check if there's footage available, right? Check YouTube, reach out to the event coordinator, try to get that footage because that's free content that you can just post on your YouTube channel. And two, here's a quick hack. If you have spoken at a conference or an event and you're on stage and you have a picture of that with a mic, or you're on stage with holding a microphone, that gives you so much authority because nobody just gets invited onto a stage. So that means you are someone, right? So that carries a ton of credibility, and I would immediately use those pictures as my profile picture or posters on social media to add more authority to my brand. The beauty of this method is that it leverages content that you've already made, and by turning it to video, you're just transforming it into your video strategy, and it becomes more powerful and more evergreen. And video, obviously, we know, continuously reaches new audience. So using this approach, I would use to generate like 1 or 2 ideas per week, maybe one, if even. I mean, I didn't really have a lot of text or tweets or LinkedIn posts about this, but I would imagine a founder that already has written content, like my client has a lot of written content, so that's a lot of low-hanging fruit for us to work with. We've got like 50 plus ideas that we can start. And the last one is support questions. So if you have a support team or a process that handling support tickets or queries, I would take a closer look at those requests. What are users struggling with? What issues come up the most? What questions do they have? This is especially useful for software or product businesses because you can take those recurring questions, turn them into content ideas that are explainer videos, FAQ videos, support videos. And this does 2 things. One, this helps your prospect, people that are viewing your videos before they buy from you, understand how the product works so they're ready to use it from day one. And 2, it helps users solve their issues faster because your support team now has more ammunition to help them via video. And video is so much easier to follow than written text or a phone call because you can just literally see how to do this. So, for example, let's say like users find it frustrating to upload a document into your software. You can create a step-by-step video on Loom that walks them through the process. And not only does this help your users, but it just doubles as a piece of product or work content. So users know, oh, this is how they can upload a document. 1, they have the feature. 2, it looks easy. So that's great. And then your support team obviously has ammunition to use this as a quick way to resolve issues. So I would look at your support questions and see if you have any things there that you can create video assets from. So once I get all my content ideas, I put them into my idea bank, and this is an important step that you cannot skip. So if you don't know what an idea bank is, you need to check out this video. I'm going to post right now. Click on it. You'll see what I talk about in idea bank and how I made one. I even talk about how Mosey built his idea bank in case you're interested. So check it out. I mean, it's only like a few minutes, like 3 or 4 minutes. And hit that subscribe and like button if you feel like you learned one thing from this video. Till next time, peace.